All right, guys. So super fired up about today's training. We have Miss Cassie Kowalski on with us, our very own top agency producer, agency owner. And I always love interviewing somebody like Cassie because she's a beast, right? And there's a lot to learn from somebody, not just like what she does, but how she thinks, how she operates, what makes her tick. Those are the things that we should be um we should be wanting to figure out, like what makes successful people successful, not just like what do you do, but why also I think is important. So Cassie, thank you so much for being on with us. I know that you are super busy both personally and professionally, so thank you for taking the time.
Thank
So
you for having me. I'm excited to be on with everyone.
of course. So to kick things off, for those that don't know you personally, can you just share a little bit about your backstory, what you're doing before this, how you found insurance, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so just real quick, I've been in the industry now for about 4 years, and I've only been with Family First Life for a year and a couple months. So I came from another brokerage, but before that, I had no experience in life insurance. I didn't even know what life insurance was. Even after I got my license, I mean, I was in college when I got my license. So I literally dropped out of college to get my license, told no one, and just figured I'd see how much money I could make my first month in the business. I ended up selling like 18,000 AP my first month. And that was, with the door knocking system, buying like older leads, $3 leads that were 7 years old, door knocking. And so I knew that if I could do that, that I did not need to get into any more student debt. So I had committed to life insurance full time from there. And since then, I have not seen a better opportunity with all the different industries, all the different sales industries. I have not seen a better opportunity than what we have. So,
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too, because I think so many people nowadays with social media and like it's so easy to lose focus, right? And I've also learned that maybe there might be something better out there, right? But I think too many people bounce around, they never grow their roots in anything, right? And if I can give my younger self advice, I would say stick with something for at least 5 years, plant your roots and actually grow something. Give yourself time to grow. Too many people, they try something for a month or two and they're like, this doesn't work. No, it's like you don't know how to work it yet. Like give it some time. So I appreciate you sharing that because you and I are both on the same page. I think we wouldn't be on this call if there was something better. Um, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was, and that's kind of like how I had shared with everybody before we started this call. It takes to be as successful as you are, as consistent as you are. It takes a certain type of routine or regimen, let's say, right? Like you can't wake up at 11 o'clock and get the day rolling. Talk to us about like, do you have rituals, routines? Like, do you have a mindset towards all that stuff? Like, what does your day to day look like?
yeah, I think what's important when it comes to routine is first asking yourself, like, especially as a new agent, where like you're starting and how much you need to sacrifice to get to where you want to go. So if your upline has a completely different routine or amount of time they're putting in the field than you, that doesn't mean you can do what they're doing because they may have worked really hard to get to where they are. Now, most of us are all still working 40 plus hours a week. But when I first started, I was working 50 hours a week, door knocking, driving hours and hours and hours until I hit my goal. And so when I try to explain that to new agents, it's like, you guys haven't put in that like true work yet. So until you've saturated yourself in this business, it's really hard to feel like you're an expert at it. So the people that kind of come in and they come and go and they're like, well, I'm just gonna get on live dials like a couple hours a day or show face and get off, like, or attend this meeting one week and then not show up the next week. Like, you're not hurting anybody but yourself. And so it doesn't really matter what you see, you know, other people doing, because you don't know what they did to get to that point. So in
Right.
the beginning, my schedule was like 50 hours a week, worked every Saturday. And I went out on the weekends. Like I went out after that. I enjoyed myself. I had fun and I earned it. And I loved being the one to be able to buy my friends drinks and like do those things because I was making good money and I earned it, and going on vacations and whatnot. Now, I really only work Saturdays when I have to, if I don't hit my goal by Friday, typically. So my day-to-day routine, I do have rituals. I do have, you know, what makes me feel good every day. So that has changed, obviously, being pregnant. So in the mornings now, instead of going and like doing a heavy lift or something, I'm just walking. So I'll go for a morning walk and my body moving. We are sitting all day. So if you just roll out of bed and sit down, it, not only are you going to feel stiff and not like excited, but you're also going to not be like the most, like you're not gonna be the most excited. You're not gonna have those fresh endorphins boosted. You're not gonna have your blood flowing. Like you're just not gonna be as, you feel as great as if you were to have exercised or stretched or something simple that makes you happy. So I
Right.
always do my walk. I do my devotions, you know, for at least 10 to 15 minutes. I always eat. A lot of you guys don't eat, and then you end up getting headaches by lunchtime. I always make all my agents eat in the morning, so I eat and I hydrate and everything, and then I focus on new business first. A lot of agents will sit down and they'll start doing back office at like 10 a.m. That is not efficient in my eyes. If you have a certain day of the week where you go and do that, Fridays or whatever, to close out your week, that's fine. But if you wake up every day and you're starting your day with, you know, pending business, outstanding requirements, you're going to be stressed out by lunchtime if you have no appointments booked, you haven't closed a sale, and now you're sitting here with all these outstanding requirements, and you're like, why is this all taking forever to get placed? So I always recommend starting your day with business, new business, and then by lunchtime you don't feel bad if you take an hour lunch break, and then or during your, while you're eating your lunch, you're doing back office, right? And then going back to you know, appointment setting and presentations and everything. And then my cutoff time every night, for me, I had to give myself a cutoff time. Otherwise, I'd have agents messaging me all night. My agents know is 8 o'clock. If they're a couple hours behind me, sometimes I'll answer them till 8:30 my time. But I had to draw that like boundary for myself because I was exhausting myself too much, and then I wasn't able to sleep because I was thinking about work all night long. So my cutoff time is like 8 o'clock, 8:30 every night. So
Okay.
that's like my.
Okay. Awesome. Now, um, I know that maybe for you it might be more natural at this point, but what are your thoughts? Because you mentioned like you like this is something. It may seem like it's something simple, but I think it's important to discuss. You said that you make your the people on your team eat breakfast. Like, is it chocolate croissants, Dunkin' Donuts, or like are you more intentional about the way you eat?
I mean, I don't tell people what to eat, but yeah,
I,
no,
I
I
was yeah, I was kidding about that. But for you, like, are you intentional about how you eat? Which I'm assuming
yeah,
you are.
yeah, I do. I mean, we all have our days, you know, especially like now that I'm pregnant, I have my days. But no, for the
Yeah,
most,
let's ask pre-pregnancy diet.
but I like this morning, like I like having things that are super hydrating because we're talking all day, right? So like this morning I blended like watermelon and like lemon and oranges. Like I like having like things that are watermelon and or hydrating and whatnot, and make me feel good all day, because a lot of you guys wake up and you like drink your coffee immediately and you feel like dried out and just awful all day. And I don't know. Yeah. So I try to eat something healthy that gives me energy too. Like if I don't eat carbohydrates, good carbohydrates, then I don't have as much energy to sit on the phones. And when you're, you know, pregnant, you can't have all this caffeine and stuff. So I have to, you know, get energy from my food sources and everything. So, but same with people who aren't, you know, everyone should be taking care of themselves. If you're eating like a super heavy breakfast, you're going to feel lethargic all day. You're not
Mhm.
going to want to, you're not gonna, you're gonna have brain fog. You're not gonna have that mental clarity. Versus if you're eating fruits and vegetables and meats and stuff, unprocessed things, you're gonna have a lot more mental clarity.
Yeah, I remember Allison and I would talk about this all the time when we were in the field. Like, um, sh literally because sometimes like when some of the areas that we were going to, you were limited to what you can eat. So like if I were to stop and get like Chick-fil-A after that meal in the appointment, I'm like falling asleep in the appointment, you know, and it's like that may seem like not a big deal to focus on what you eat, but if you're running at a high level or your goal is to run at a high level, like those little things add up, right? Like how you sleep, how you eat. Like you're not going to perform at the highest level. It's if you're tired and sluggish, it's easy to just say, "Oh, I'll stop dialing."
Yeah.
Right? I'll call it quits. But like to be able to push to that next level of capacity, like of work capacity that maybe you're not used to, you need that energy. You need every bit of energy you can get.
Yeah. And I think that also comes down to preparation. So for me, whether I'm in the field, whether I was going, to people's homes or working from home, like I do my meal prep on Sundays and Wednesdays. So that way I'm not scrambling at 1 p.m. to go get lunch somewhere, especially now I live out in the country. Like there's nowhere for me to go really,
Right.
besides the local diner. So a lot of agents will like go to lunch with their friends at 1 o'clock and they haven't even made a sale yet for today. I'm like, what are you guys doing? So you have to know what you're eating, be prepared for your day. If you know you're going to be working all evening, you don't want to have to cook, right? And you don't want to be starving yourself and feel like sluggish the next day. So preparation is key, whether it's, for your buying your leads the next day or making sure you have like good sources of food so that you don't have to waste time scrambling to make or go get food.
Yeah, that's great. Talk to us about your standards. You seem like a pretty disciplined human being. I think a lot of people that are disciplined, they may be unconscious about some of the standards that they have. Like you may, it's just normal for you, but you don't even realize that other people don't have those personal standards. What would you say are some of the standards that you set for yourself? Maybe they've changed over time, but like, what does that look like for you?
I think it's funny you bring that up because I think that's the biggest disconnect with recruiting and hiring is you naturally have these like standards and expectations for people. And then when they don't meet them, you're like so disappointed. And then you're like, wait, not everyone is like as crazy as you are. Like, not everyone is like gonna be as hard on themselves. And they shouldn't be. Like, sometimes I'm too hard on myself. But yeah, I do have high standards because I have big goals and I've always had big goals. And
But have you always had high standards?
yeah, yeah, I've always been super, even from the time I've been an athlete since I was a gymnast since I was 3 years old. So like, even then I was hard on myself. If I didn't do well in competitions when I was really little, I was hard on myself. But, and that can be a good thing or bad thing. But I think that the way to gauge if your standards are like manageable is to backtrack your goals and to be like to actually really break down, am I capable of doing this? Like, how can I get to this goal? Because some agents come in and they're like, I'm going to do 40K my first month, but they don't know how to get there. And so they have these really high standards because they see someone else doing it, but they don't like create a roadmap on how to get there.
Yeah.
And
And it's funny that you say that, not to cut you off, but it's funny that you say that because I've seen working with thousands of agents, I've seen the agents that are like, hey, I just need to like make what I'm making now. Like I need to like, make $4,000 or $5,000 or help 4 families. I feel like those people have a lot faster success and a lot more sustaining success than the people that are like, I need to make $100,000 month one. Right. Because I think when they see what other people are doing, they don't realize it took them maybe a year or 2 years or 3 years to get to that consistent level. And they don't do it month one. And now they're discouraged.
because that's what I was going to say. Now they're disappointed and then they quit.
Right.
Because they're not there. And they think that they're going to get there right away. And I think some people have unrealistic expectations in the way that they think that this business is just like fast money, like get rich quick type thing. And yes, we can make an insane amount of money very quickly. But that's, it's not always the case. And you gotta earn it sometimes too.
Right.
I did create a breakdown, if you want to see it, of like an activity tracker of how you could backtrack your goals and how I backtrack my goals so that you can see if you have unrealistic expectations and standards. If you want me to share my screen, I
Yeah,
can
sure.
do that. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, you already gave me permission. Or no, actually. There we go.
I did.
Okay, now it should let me. All right, so like, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like the activity tracker that I use. I fill this in on a daily basis. So if you look, I kind of always start with like, what's my total AP goal, which is 10,000 a week here. And then I backtrack, what do I need to do to get there? So for whatever your goal is, you'd start at that, whatever your week total is, backtrack what you need per day, which is 2,000 if I'm working 5 days a week. I always want to have 10 apps a week, because for every 10 policies you write, you might have one chargeback. So I don't want 5 apps a week for 10,000 AP. I want 10 because I'm not going to feel it. So I'm not going to care about that one chargeback. So 2 apps a day is always my goal. And to get there, I think I need to do at least 5 presentations a day, close 2 out of 5. Typically, I'm going to close more than that, but just in case, as a safety net, which means if I'm doing telesales, I probably need to book 15 a day, because let's face it, 10 of those people might not show up. Usually it's about half, but just in case, I want 15 booked a day, which means I need to talk to 30 people a day in order for me to book 15 a day, right? Because 15 of them might hang up on me or say they're not interested or whatever. Your average dials to get 30 people to answer on average, depends on your leads and everything, of course, is for every 20 dials, you're going to book 1 appointment on average. So you're going to take those 20 dials times how many approaches you want, and that's 30. That means I need 600 dials. Now that seems like a lot, but if I'm doing 300 in my morning session, 8 to 12, and then 300 in my evening session, 4 to 8, that's not that bad. 300 hours in the morning, 300 in the evening. And to kind of decide how many leads I need to get there, because everyone always asks that, how many leads do I need to get, right? How much do I need to spend, stuff like that. I would say I need 100 leads to get there, because 100 times 3 dials per lead is 300 dials. So that means I'm going to call those leads in the morning, in the evening, and hopefully those are my ratios. And then again, the next day, if I need to, it might be less because I'm narrowing down my leads. So that's how I would get to 10K. So I know exactly how many dials I need to make in order to get to 10K. And I know how many leads I need to buy, right? So my lead spend, of course, is going to depend on what kind of leads I'm buying. But this is even if you're buying CRM leads, guys, like cheap $4 leads off the CRM. Okay. So everyone always asks, like, lead spend, all this stuff. Lead spend is important, but it's also activity. Like you could have 100 amazing leads, but if you're not calling those 100 leads, 3 times each, twice a day, you're going to have a very similar result as if they were not as high intent leads or whatever. So it's really agents' activity. And whenever I look at my agents' activity tracker and they're not hitting their goal, it's always because their activity is too low. It's usually not because they need more training. It's usually not because they're not closing. It's because they're not calling enough, or they're just not getting enough leads in the first place. So of course they're not calling enough. So yeah.
And I think it's this perspective, I think, is also important. Like if you think about these numbers, this is a doctor's salary, right? A doctor works 80 to 100 hours a week, right? Especially a new doctor. So think about that for a second. This is doctor money. And actually it's more like nowadays. But people aren't willing to even work half of what a doctor does to earn more than what a doctor earns. So I think that's where people, if they think like, oh man, this is a lot of work, is it really though? Like you're making the schedule. Nobody's calling you at 2 in the morning that you have to rush into the hospital. Like you don't have to go to school for 12 years and go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Like the upside potential of this business and this right here that we're looking at, guys, I just think it's like, it's incredible
Mhm.
if you do the work, right?
And this
Like,
is only 8 hours a day. I mean, this
so
is
that's what
4
I'm saying.
morning and 4 in the evening. So that's an 8-hour day with a break
Right.
in between. So you're telling me I can go to all my doctor's appointments, I can go to, the grocery store or whatever I need to do and still hit my goal? Like that's crazy. If I didn't have this job and I were, and I'm pregnant, I would have to ask off every time for a doctor's appointment, which would mean I'm missing like a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's a
I mean, my wife and I've had 3 children. Luckily after our first, she did not have to work. And I just remember like thinking, we would talk about it all the time. Like, I don't know how people have like a 9 to 5 and do all these doctor's appointments, because like when you're pregnant, there's like a doctor's appointment every other week, like, or it gets to a point where it's like every week towards the end. So the flexibility that this creates is as well is incredible.
Mhm.
So
But with
thank you for sharing. This is
flexibility,
great.
sorry to cut you off, Frank, but just to add to that, with flexibility comes like that demand for like discipline. And that's where a lot of people fail
Yeah.
because they have the flexibility, they might take that lunch break and they might not come back for that evening session.
Well, with
So
flexibility comes responsibility.
yeah, yeah. And so a lot of people, like they don't ever hit their goal because they know that they don't have someone that's going to fire them if they don't show up to live dials, if they don't show up for their evening dial session. They know they don't have that. So I think that that's obviously where most people struggle, is that accountability. And that really comes down to like why you're doing this in the first place. Like, why do you need to hit this 10,000? Like, I have a huge why right now. I'm reminded every day why I need to make and save and plan for my future and my baby's future. But some people, that's their first problem. They don't have a purpose. They have
Mhm.
no reason. And like you said, they might just come into this wanting to make 5,000, which is totally fine. You can do that. But if you don't have a reason why you need that or want that, or what's your end goal, you're going to eventually plateau, or you're just never going to hit your goal in the first place. So I think that's where people need to kind of start.
I love it. This is great. Thank you for sharing this, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So go back. I want to circle back to standards. What are some, do you have like outside of personal production? Do you have any standards that like are like any conscious standards, whether it be on a day-to-day basis or just personally, that you
What do you
think
mean?
contribute? They're just standards, whether it be personally, professionally, that contribute to your success in this business.
Um,
I mean, that could be anything, like anything that you think. And again, I know it's a hard question because you know what you know, right? Like you may have some standards that are just from day one that were passed down, learned behavior from your parents or whatnot that other people just consciously don't have. But like, I'll give you an example. You said that your goal was 10,000. If you don't hit that, like, what does that look like? Or if you
so,
don't hit that consistently,
mhm.
what does that look like? Start to
Yeah,
look like?
and I haven't been hitting it consistently, to be honest. And that was something that I kind of had to reassess today. Like, why am I not hitting it consistently? And it's because it always comes down to activity. It's because of activity and lead spend. Every time I transition leads, a lead type, you're going to go through that little bit of like rockiness where you're waiting for your campaign to pick up again or whatever. And I'm always testing out different methods for my agents, so that does happen sometimes, and it's fine. I know that I'll pick back up again, but yeah, when I don't hit that, that's when I can be kind of hard on myself too, because I know I need to hit that so that I can be prepared for this baby, and my house needs a lot of work and different things that I want to make sure that I have some sort of maternity leave, where I can actually not have to, I could still be helping my agents, but not have to be, you know, actively doing presentations for at least 4 to 8 weeks. So it just kind of, when I don't hit those things, it kind of reminds me of like all the reasons why I need to. And then it just kind of like ripple effects, you know, like I need to kind of look at it and then the next day be like, okay, do I need to increase my goal a little bit today to catch up from yesterday if I didn't quite get there, you know? But I think the number one thing to make myself like feel what's the word, I don't know, just not like a failure, I guess, is at the end of every day asking myself, and I always tell this to my agents because I started doing this when I was door knocking. I would ask myself before I would drive home for the day, am I physically and mentally exhausted completely? Because if I didn't hit my goal and I could ask myself that, and the answer was yes, like I didn't have one more presentation left in me, I didn't have one more call left in me, then I was okay with clocking out for the day. But if it's 7 or 8 o'clock, I haven't hit my goal, but I started late because I was at the doctor's all morning, and you know, I haven't hit my goal yet, so I want to keep going, and I'm not super exhausted, then I'll keep going until I either hit my goal or I feel like I've checked that box, I'm exhausted, or it's just not an appropriate time to call a client anymore. So that, I mean, that I think is key a lot of times, is just asking yourself that, because that's holding yourself accountable, and it's going to prevent you from failure, essentially, you know.
I think that's great advice. And the one thing I think, like you had mentioned, you've created some standards from almost birth, right? 3 years old. But what people don't realize is you can set standards, right? Or you could set goals or expectations or activity goals. But if you continually don't do what you said you're going to do, that can be like very, very cancerous. That could be a cancerous habit. That could be it could become a toxic trait. Like it could become part of your identity. And so people have to understand that nobody's perfect, right? There could be a day or two that you miss, but it's very important to not get in the habit of missing and not doing what you said you're going to do. And so there's a balance to, like, you can't be too hard on yourself, right? But you also have to keep the promises that you make to yourself, right?
Right.
Like you wouldn't tell your child that, hey, I'm going to pick you up from school and then not pick them up, right? Like how many times is that going to happen when the school calls, you know, the local office and has them pick them up for you? So why aren't we like that with ourselves? Is
Yeah.
a question that I think some of us need to ask.
My previous manager at my old company would always say that, Frank, and he would always say, do what you say you're going to do. And he would refer to either when it's talking about, you know, the client, like if you tell your client, I'm going to call you at this time tomorrow to go over your policy with you, you do it, even if it doesn't benefit you anymore, even if you already made the commission. If you say, I'm going to go deliver your policy, you do it. You know, I'm going to send you a gift card for that referral, you do it. And same thing with your regular schedule and everything as well. But that do what you say you're going to do is always nagging me in the back of my mind, because now I stop myself from saying things if I don't think I'm in the right place to do it or I'm capable of doing it. Especially with agents, like I don't want to overpromise what I can offer agents right now and underdeliver. I don't want to say, hey, I can do one-on-one training with every single one of you every day, when that's just not the case right now, right? But I can promise you that if you show up to our Wednesday training, that you're going to get something out of it, and that if you miss it, it'll be recorded, hopefully, so you can watch it, right? I'll promise what I can do. And same thing to myself. I try to kind of bargain with myself sometimes on what I can do right now, because I am used to being able to go full throttle. And I think we all kind of go through those phases where maybe our health is a little bit off, or maybe it's something with our kids where it's like, I got to put extra time towards this, or maybe like a lot of my agents, they have personal things going on with their family and they have to sacrifice a little bit of their own life right now. And so they're going through those trials, and that's fine. So bargain with yourself. If I have to miss this time, I'm going to make up for it on this day, right? And then vice versa. So I was talking to, I think it was maybe Katora about this the other day. When you have momentum, take advantage of it, because you're going to regret it if, you know, come the holiday season, you want to say yes to events or whatever, like you were talking about the other week, Frank. You want to say yes to these things, but you didn't put in the time beforehand to earn that time off. So if you have momentum now, you have the time now and the focus, keep that momentum, make the money to make, help as many people as you can, and then you won't feel guilty about taking that time off.
Yeah.
So I think that that is so important. A lot of agents get momentum and then they slow down. That's the worst thing you can do. You should take advantage.
And here, and it's funny because the thing with that is there's power and momentum, but we could say it and hope that people take the advice, but some people need to figure out for themselves. And like my hope for everybody is that just learn from us, learn from the people that have already made the mistake. If you have momentum, do not let off the gas. Like that's when you double down, because when, like, if you really are cooking, you don't know how long, if you get off, you don't know how long it's going to take you to get back on. Right. So, all right, let's get into some meat. Let's go through your script, your telesales script. Okay.
Mhm.
We can role play. I could be 52-year-old Frank. Okay. So this is exactly what I'm going to look like at 52, if you guys are wondering.
One time I think it was your dad was on Live Giles, and I was like, is that Frank? Because he was wearing glasses. I was like, Frank looks a lot older with glasses.
That's so funny.
I
It's
didn't
so
know
funny.
that worked with us.
You know, it's so funny because my son, a friend of mine just actually met my son the other day. I mean, he's seen pictures and stuff, but he met him in person, and he's like, "Your son is like a mini clone of your father." And it's crazy because when I see my son, I see my father. So if you think I look like my father, you should see my son and my father together. It's like the exact same person. It's crazy. So I'm 52-year-old Frank, looking younger than ever, and I filled out a form online, and you call me.
Okay, just call to close.
Yeah, let's yeah.
All right. Hey,
Is that
Frank,
typically what you're doing now, or if you can?
if I can, yeah.
Okay.
If I call someone and they're, yeah, you'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Frank.
Hello?
Hey, Frank. Sorry to bother you. This is Cassie. I was just calling you because you had sent back a request to me for your life coverage options. You had actually put down that your beneficiary was your wife. Is that correct?
That's correct. Lucky dog she is.
Okay, great. And you had put down that you are in Boca Raton, Florida. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And then last question, your email is f.DeSena at, or sorry, what I'm trying to remember what your real email is. fflgoldstandard.com.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So I was just calling you to go over these options that you had requested. I have a little bit of time now. Are you at work or are you at home?
I'm at home.
You're at home. Okay, perfect. And then I know you're married. Does your wife need to hear these benefits as well, or do you make these decisions on your own?
I'm sure I could figure it out on my own.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll go over this information with you now. Tell me a little bit about why you had filled this out. Do you currently have coverage and feel like you're paying too much for it, or do you not have anything at all?
Well, I had something and it recently expired, so looking for something else.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. It was like a term then.
Yeah, it was one of those term policies.
Gotcha. And you said you're 52, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's good. You're so young then. Okay.
I know.
And
Thank you.
then what's your wife's name?
Maria,
Maria. And how many children do you have?
3.
3. And are you still financially responsible for all 3 of those children?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Perfect. So What I'm going to do here first, Frank, I'm going to go ahead and send you an email with my state licenses. The reason I do this is just because we are over the phone nowadays. That way you can see that I've been background checked and licensed by the FBI and SBI. It's also going to have a link to the Department of Insurance where you can look me up on there and just verify all that information. Anytime you speak with anybody over the phone, please make sure you ask them for their license or license number, okay?
Got it.
That's just for your security. Did you receive that email?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we're just going to get right into it for you. We're going to go through your health. Are you currently taking any medications?
I am taking I was taking a blood pressure, but they took me off of it.
Okay. Frank, do you want me to just like skip this part? But basically I would ask them all their health stuff. And then, health questions, diagnose, like all that, kind of have in the back of my mind, like what I would put them with. If I'm a new agent, I'm sending it to Slack every single time to make sure even if I'm not a new agent, sometimes I just don't know the answer and I ask you guys for help. But then I send it to Slack and ask what company, just so we don't have to waste time on that. And then I go into
You go over the financials.
Yeah, so I do a policy review first and then financial needs. So I'll do the health sheet and then I'll ask them, so you said you had a policy that expired, Frank. So you don't currently have anything in place, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And what about Maria? Does she have anything in place?
She does. She has a policy, a permanent policy that goes to forever.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So we're going to focus on you and make sure she's okay if something happens to you. Is that right?
Right.
And is this policy meant for like a big mortgage protection or just to leave behind to the children and Maria?
Yeah, mostly just to leave them behind money. So they're, because my wife doesn't work.
Okay, got it. All right. So we're going to go through your financial needs. We're going to make sure that you're not over or underinsured. And we're also going to, more importantly, find something within your budget. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your expenses. Do you have a mortgage or do you just rent? Do you own your home?
We have a mortgage.
You have a mortgage. Okay. And how much do you have left on your mortgage?
We have about 200,000 left.
200,000 left. Okay, not bad. And then what are your total monthly expenses for your family?
I would say about 7,000 or 8,000.
7 or 8,000. Okay. And then you said you're the primary breadwinner. What is your estimated monthly income?
About 90,000.
90,000. Okay. And then Maria is a stay-at-home mom. Beautiful. I love that. Okay. Got it. So if something were to happen to you, Maria would not have anything like essentially to live off of. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So we need to make sure that you have some sort of supplemental income as well as pay off that mortgage. Do you have anything in place currently that could act like life insurance, such as like a retirement account, like a 401k or an IRA?
Well, I think I have an old 401k that has like 75,000 in it.
Okay. You're not currently contributing to that anymore?
No.
Okay. So we'll circle back to that, but at least you have that, God forbid. But we want you to be able to utilize that money during your retirement since you're only 52. We don't want you to lean on that as any sort of life insurance, but it is there as of right now for a safety net. Okay. All right. So I want to kind of get into the different kinds of insurance. Are you familiar with the 3 different kinds of insurance, Frank?
No.
No. Okay.
Now,
So
are you doing this? You're just doing this on the phone, right? You're not.
yeah,
You're not
I'm
visually
just showing
seeing.
you guys what I use
Okay.
every single presentation. Every agent, that I teach this to uses this exact document for their client so that they don't skip a single step.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I was using this the entire time I was talking to you. And then I'm at this part, 3 types of insurance. Frank, what you had before, it sounds like it was a term. That was the kind that most people end up getting on accident. Typically that's best for mortgage protection. If you do have a big mortgage, young children at home, it's good for a period of time. Reason being, it's going to cover you, say, for 20 or 30 years, kind of like yours did. But then the downside is, just like you experienced, it either expires or it goes up in price, and then you don't get any of that money back. So a lot of people end up, very angry when they find that out when they're in their 60s or 70s, that they don't get any money back they invested into it. So, there's a time and a place for it. It is the one that you see advertised the most. That's the cheapest, but you get what you pay for. So I'm not sure if you, want something like that again, but there is, better options out there if you want something for permanent coverage. The exact opposite of that is going to be a whole life, Frank. That one actually builds cash value and interest, and it never expires on you, and it never goes up in price. Now, typically this is best for people who are 50 and older, but there is something similar to whole life that acts very similar to it, and it's going to give you a little bit better rate usually. Luckily, you're still healthy enough to get this kind. It's called an indexed universal life. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No. So it's very popular right now because everyone is seeing it on social media and stuff. But it's been around a very long time. The reason why a lot of people actually want this kind of policy is because it builds really good cash value and interest, just like a whole life would. And it also never expires on you, just like a whole life wouldn't. But it also is going to give you more coverage for cheaper than a whole life. So if you can get approved for this one, it's probably going to be your best bet. We're going to be able to cover that $200,000 mortgage for you, and then also make sure that we can have some sort of supplemental income for Maria. So even if we wanted to just leave behind an additional $100,000 so that, she has another year of your income being replaced so she can transition with the kids, God forbid, if that does happen while they're still young. So that way, she'll be left with like a $300,000 benefit. I think that would be probably best suited for you. So I'm going to check your options. I'm going to first check with Mutual of Omaha. Mutual of Omaha is an A+ rated company. I'm sure you've heard of them. They've been around for over 100 years. They're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and they actually have some of the best rates in the nation. So go ahead and grab a pen and paper, and I'm going to give you some options, okay?
Okay.
And then I would start with like the 300,000. I'll just go ahead and do it. So I'm going to make up the quotes though. So Frank, the gold option, the absolute most coverage you can get with them without having to do a medical exam, is going to be $300,000 coverage. It's going to come with $600,000 of accidental included. So it'll double if you pass of any sort of accident, including a fall or anything like that. And then it's also going to have accelerated living benefits. These are very important to understand that you have. This is going to be if, God forbid, you get critically, chronically, or terminally ill, you're going to be able to claim up to $300,000 while you're living. And this will act sort of like a long-term care. So this is great for the breadwinner of the family. If you can't work and, Maria's career has kind of been put on hold for a while, we want to make sure that you're not just going to not have income. So you're going to be able to claim this while you're living to pay off that mortgage and to have that year salary that you're used to while you're transitioning and going through that period of your life. Okay. That's the gold option. That's the highest option you could get. That one is $200 a month. Okay. And then I'll wait for the reaction, and I'll see if they're like, oh, whoa, like that's way too high. If you say, oh, that's way more than I was expecting. All right, no problem, Frank. That's the gold option. Like I said, that's the most you could get if you do get approved. Now, the next option is going to be the silver option, 250,000. I'm gonna go down from there, and then I'll do 200, right? And I say the benefits over and over again because you think that these people are listening, but you can't tell because you're on the phone. So I'll repeat accidental 400, and I'll repeat, this would be 400. But yeah, so I'll repeat it, and then I'll say at the end of it, now, Frank, I don't collect any money. That's not my job. I just see if you can get approved. Frank, you get to decide when you want this to begin on. Okay, so you can decide when you want it to begin on, but just for the application purposes, which one are you most comfortable with? and I'll let him pick gold, silver, or bronze. The gold, silver, bronze verbiage really helps, I think, psychologically. It always helps because like some people like they have that ego where they're like, I really want the gold. And then some people like, they're like, I'll do the middle one. Like I'll go for the one in the middle. It's like they average it, in their mind. So I say that a lot, gold, silver, bronze. And they're like, what was the silver one again? And it always makes me laugh because obviously I just made up gold, silver, bronze. And then whatever option they pick, I say, that's perfect, Frank. That's exactly what I was going to pick for you. I think that 250,000 fits your budget perfectly. And I think that would be plenty for Maria and the kids. Okay. And then I'll say, all right, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to go ahead and see if this is even going to be an option for you. We're going to put in an application, see what they say, and we're going to go from there. Okay. Sound good? And then he'll be like, yeah. And then I start. That's my presentation.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So the thing I'm most interested in is how are you drawing? Are you drawing on your iPad right now? Or what were
Oh
you
yeah,
doing?
that's why it's really messy. Yeah.
No, I think that's awesome. So do you do that? Like do you ever do that with a client on Zoom?
Oh no, I've never had to. I've
Okay.
I've never had to. The way I like talk to people, I'm super thorough and I repeat myself a lot. And so I've just never really needed to. Some people might ask, a lot of people will say, well, can you email this to me? And I'm just very honest. I'm like, hey, this is on a scrap piece of paper. Like I'm pulling quotes from hundreds of companies. I don't have, anything I can send you. These are systems that I have to log into and pull quotes from. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, but go ahead and write this down, and I make them write it down because I know they're listening. And then it makes it easier for them to choose. If you're just
Right.
spitting off all these numbers to somebody, they're like, well, I need to think about it, or let me get back with you. Let me show this to my wife or whatever it might be. So that's why I do that. Now, the other thing I was going to say, I always explain the 3 types of insurance. And this might be more than some of you guys do, like a lot more information, but this is so important. The amount of clients I've had tell me, oh my gosh, like no one has ever explained this to me. Like that makes so much sense. Or you were the most thorough person I talked to. That's why I want to go with you. Like you actually explained things. And
Yeah, it
then
takes 3 minutes to create credibility.
yeah. And then that they're picking what they want. Like I'm going to guide them in the direction that I think they should go in, because a lot of times people still might be a little bit confused if you don't literally tell them what to do. But like if someone tells me like I want the cheapest policy possible to cover my mortgage the next 20 years, I'm going to guide them in the direction of a term. But if someone's like, no, I don't want anything that expires on me, I want something permanent, then I'm going to guide them towards universal if they can get approved for it. If I know there's no chance of them getting approved for universal, I'm not even going to waste my breath on universal. I'm going to say like, hey, there is a third kind. However, based on your health and your age, you would not be eligible for it, but I'm still going to acknowledge it, because if they see an ad about a universal, then they're going to call that other person and, say, well, I'm going to go get this instead. So forget what you did for me. So I'm still going to acknowledge all 3 kinds. A lot of people don't spend time on the financial breakdown. The financial breakdown is super important in determining what their budget is. And then also, if you actually had the 75,000, I just found a $75,000 annuity, right? Which will happen. Even if you're a new agent and you don't know what to do with that. And I wrote on here, circle back to this. I'm still going to focus on life insurance. That's what he needs. But after he trusts me and I help him with that, and he gets his policy and that all calms down, I'm going to say, Frank, I know you said you had an old 401k just sitting there. I wanted to make sure that your 401k is not at risk of, market loss. So what we need to do is make sure that that is in something safe, something, fixed, maybe like a fixed indexed annuity. I want to illustrate something for you, and then I'll set up a meeting with him to show him that. And if you're a new agent and you don't know how to do that, you just get with your upline and have your upline tell you exactly what to do. But don't ever ignore that. There was one other thing, the policy review. I have a whole video on why you should always do a policy review. If he had a policy, I would 3-way the company onto the line. No matter what he told me what it was, I never believe the client because they're always wrong. Not saying they're lying, they're just always wrong. But yeah, that's it.
Love it. couple of things I want to pull from that. The first thing, the going over, like you mentioned, going over each type of insurance. The reason why it's important is because confused clients don't move, right? So when you educate them and empower them, you're empowering them to make their own decision based on the information you gave them, right? Without the information, they're not going to be able to make a decision. So if you're trying to do one call closes, and here's the thing, I hate to say the one call close thing because we're not trying to close people, right? But that's just the title it's been given. But the thing is I always looked at it as a risk. If I get somebody on the phone or if I get in front of somebody, this may be the last person that ever sits in front of them to talk about life insurance, right? You may be the last person that ever gets them on the phone to talk about life insurance. So you want to use as many tools like that for them to feel confident to make a decision, right? So I think that's very important, guys, to use that tool. A question that I have for you, you had mentioned when we first got on the phone, you said, is this something that you could do without your wife? What would happen if do you get that a lot where somebody says, I need my wife?
Well, what people will say is, well, I'll just relay this information to her. If someone says that, I don't even want to talk with them. If they have to relay like until they can both speak on the phone with me, because if I know they have to go back and ask their wife or relay the information, they're not going to do as good of a job as I'm doing, obviously. And they're not going to explain the 3 types of insurance to their wife. And their wife's like, well, I saw a term for 19.99, or I saw a policy I can get 100,000 for 19.99 a month, and she's saying $100 a month for 100,000. I don't want that conversation even happen between them. So right. I both.
So what do you do?
So I would say, all right, so if you need to relay this information to Maria, what we need to do so that Maria can hear all this as well, and you guys can make this decision together, Frank, is set up a time where you're both going to be home. So what time do you both get off work? And I'll make sure that they're both going to be there. Even if it's a Saturday, like I'll book couples on a Saturday for that reason. Because a lot of times it's hard during the week, especially if they have kids. And they always like respect that too. And the wife respects it a lot. And so when you get on the phone with them, acknowledge, especially like as a female, guys, like as a female, like you have to acknowledge the wife. Like when I would be in someone's home, a male's home, and the wife gets off work and comes in, she's like, who is this? Like she's not happy. So I'd have to literally start my presentation over. Same thing if you're on the phone with someone and their decision maker or family member or whatever walks in, you cannot just acknowledge them and keep going where you left off. You basically need to start your presentation over, or it's going to Jeremiah was laughing. It's so true. It's happened so many times. I've been kicked out of homes for not starting over my presentation. But it's gonna help. It's gonna help you actually get the close. You're gonna get so many more objections if you don't start over. It's a pain, but I look at it as like, this is my fault. Like I did not ask them, does your wife need to be here? So I need to take that extra 20 minutes to start over. And it's always worth it to do that.
And guys, like that's phenomenal advice. It seems simple, but it's really good advice. I remember I actually had a friend, I guess you could say like an old colleague. But we were cordial, and I sat down with her. It's like my first year in the business. Sat down with her. She was like, when do I sign up? Like she was 100% into, she was like, okay, can you bring back the proposal, and we'll schedule the next appointment with my husband. I'm brand new. I have no idea what I'm doing. So we meet back together, and I just go, okay, here's your options. And the guy was like not happy. And needless to say, I never got her back on the phone.
Yep.
So all I had to do was say, hey, John, I know we didn't get to meet the last time. So basically, I like to kind of just start from the beginning, just so that everybody's on the same page. And even if I had to meet one more time with them or get on a call one more time, I would have gotten the sale. 1,000% I would have gotten the sale, because her policy just ended. She liked what I was showing her. She was 100% going to do it. but her husband told her not to because I met with his wife without him.
Yep.
And then I just told him I met with them both. And I was like, which one are you going to do? Right. And it's like it's such a small mistake, but it's such a big mistake.
It's
right?
yeah, it's psychology. And I feel like, I hope guys don't take this the wrong way, but for men, it is their ego. And so if you're a guy selling to another guy, you need to make sure that you're like saying things like, hey, I know you already know this, Frank. Like, I know you're already aware of this. Like, you're stroking their ego. You have to, because then they're like, you're hyping them up and they don't feel like you're, putting on this white coat effect where you're acting like you know more than they do.
Right.
Especially in front of their wife.
Right.
And so it was funny at my old company. They would always make comments like, oh, Cassie, you sell as much as you sell because you're a female. And I'd be like, really? Because I don't even go to males' houses, because it was hard for me to be a young female selling to an older male, because they would look at me as if I didn't know what I was talking about. So then I started to change, and I have a very more I'd say alpha feminine personality than some women. So I would have to make sure that I would let them feel like they were in control and they had more knowledge than I did. I'd be like, I know you already know this, but I'm going to go over it just to kind of refresh your memory, even though they had no idea what I was talking about. Right. And I knew they didn't know what I was talking about, but it would work. It does help. And so I think, like, if you're a guy selling to a guy or a female selling to a guy, you have to keep that in mind. For men, it's about ego. And for women, it's about like feeling included and feeling like, you're on the same level as them. Right. And like you're their friend. So
great advice. All great. And this is why we talk about ad nauseum, like, we're in the people business, not the product business. There's agents that focus so much on the product, and then you can't sell because you don't know about people. You don't know how to deal with people. So all great stuff. So we're coming to an end. There's a couple quick things I wanted to ask you before we go over our slides. Biggest mistake you've made to date that you can save a new agent from making?
my biggest mistake, I feel like there's so many like little things like along the way. I would say like the biggest mistake agents make is kind of like what we were talking about before, where you're getting momentum and you slow down. Because that's something that you're always going to be tempted to do. It's not something that you're just going to do one time and learn from it. It's always there. Like, it's always a temptation, because we do get paid very well when we start to get that momentum. So I think even as veteran agents, like, you will do that. And then you look back and you regret it. And that's the one thing that's kind of nagging on my mind now with, being in my second trimester, almost third. I have like a little bit more energy than feel a lot less sick than my first. And I know come third, I'm going to be dragging. So I don't want to regret not keeping that momentum that I have now and that energy that I have now once I am forced to slow down for my body and for the health of my child. So yeah, momentum for sure. Keeping that.
Love it. And then last thing, when it comes to building an agency, which I know that you're doing, and I know it's something that's important to you. Can you share both? I'm assuming at this point you've hired both warm market and cold market, people you didn't know and people that you know. Can you share like an example one person that you knew and how that approach was with that person, and then also somebody that you brought on that you didn't know and how you did that?
Yeah, so I always use Kyle Dewitt as an example because I've known him since I was 15. I think he's on here too. I've known him since I was 15. I actually used to be a cheerleader and he was a football player. So it's really funny. But I posted on social media. A lot of my warm market recruits are from me posting, helping other clients on social media, or posting like that I'm hiring. And I had posted that I had helped a client save money with their policy and get money back or whatever. And he had responded to it. And he was like, look at my policy for me. So I did. And then at the end of it, he was like, how can I start doing this? And at the time, he had just taken a huge pay cut to be home with his family. So he was going from Mississippi to Texas every day, and he was like, I have to take a pay cut, be home with my family, and I'm used to making almost like more than double this. And so he was looking for another opportunity, and we got him licensed, got him going. And, you know, he's been amazing. Obviously, everyone hears me talk about him all the time. He's very motivated, very disciplined, and I don't have to tell him to do anything. He just does it. But a lot of warm market people don't pan out that way because they know you on a personal level. They don't feel like they have to meet certain standards. So warm market people, I let them come to me. I do not try to recruit people that are like I used to do this, people that are struggling with their current job or failing at something. I personally don't want people that are failing at whatever they're doing. I want people that are doing very well, but looking for something better for a different reason, like freedom, or, you know, to be home with their family or whatever it is. So warm market happens a lot just from me living my life, posting about my life, and people kind of come to me. Cold market, we have started doing Indeed ads and just connecting with people on Indeed. I think the best thing to do is to connect with people, obviously, who are already licensed in like health insurance. And you can tell them, take the approach of like, hey, I don't want to take you from where you're at. I just want to offer you more contracts in life insurance. And that way, at the end of your health insurance sale, you can ask the client, who do you have your life insurance with? You already have that trust and credibility. You might as well, you know, tag on an extra $1,000 commission for yourself and make sure you're checking all their boxes too and helping them out. So health insurance, realtors, mortgage brokers. I've been telling this story lately after I bought my home. My mortgage broker literally sent me an email that was his referral to my homeowner's insurance agent. Like, just here's your next step. Go ahead and call him to sign up for your homeowner's insurance. And I'm like, this is crazy. Why are we not doing this? Why are we not reaching out to all of our realtor and mortgage broker friends and saying, hey, here's your next step, get your mortgage protection? Like, that should be their final email at the end of them finishing your loan or whatever it is. Or your realtor and your broker could be doing that for you to every single one of their clients. And you write up your realtor or broker an email or whatever. And then also, so I had reached out to my realtor to start doing that for me. And she was like, well, I want to get licensed. And so she's getting licensed now. So like realtors, there's no reason for them to not have an insurance license, because everybody that they're selling a home to, typically most people are getting a mortgage. So they should all be getting mortgage protection. So, I mean, getting on Indeed and connecting with those people, or you could just like make a job ad and then having people apply for the job. I think having people apply for the job is going to give you the most structure, because then they're treating it like, you know, and they have to show up for the job, right? So yeah, that's kind of the approach we're taking now, where people are applying on Indeed and we're inviting them to a BDM after that. And I do like a Zoom BDM, business development meeting, that's recorded. In case we don't have more than like 10 people invited, we can send it out every week. And then from there, if people are interested after hearing about the opportunity, then we go ahead and get them contracted and ready to go.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much. Such incredible wisdom and experience.